What is up, everybody? Happy Thursday and welcome to our June Creative Challenge webinar. We've got a lot of stuff that I am excited to talk about today. But I'm glad that you are here, and I hope that your weather is cooler than mine. New faces, familiar faces. Welcome back, my best friend Corey Clark. Jess, wherever you are in the world, I don't know what time it is in your time zone, Jess, Teo, but I'm glad that you're here. Jill, everybody, I'm so glad that you're here. Well, let's get into it, shall we? All right, so today we are going to review our May Creative Challenge submissions. If you don't know what that is, that's okay. I will give you a brief summary. And then we will get into our lesson about parallax. And then we will go hands-on with creating a parallax hover effect. So a lot of awesome, fun stuff to do today. So to kick it off, like I said, we're going to go through our May Creative Challenge submissions. And if you are new to Educate, or if you are new to our creative challenges, here in the Engage Community tab of your Educate UI, you'll see this option called Creative Challenges. Each month, we present a new prompt, something to create in studio, something fun, something unique, something creative. It's a little break, to get the juices flowing from your normal day-to-day work. If you go to the previous challenges tab, you'll see that we've done a lot of them. And you'll notice that each of them has a badge associated with it. Because if you complete the challenge, you earn the associated badge, and it will appear next to your community profile like such on Educate once you're logged in. You notice I have a lot of them, and I have completed 0 of them. But I make all the badges, so I award them to myself anyway. May's creative challenge was Blitz board games, 50 years of family fun. So the idea here was to create an experience that was a 3-page microsite for Blitz board games. Your new employer, Blitz, is releasing a new line of board games for the summer season, and you've been tasked making a microsite for the sales team to use with retailers. So essentially the challenge was to create a microsite for the pseudo company called Blitz Board Games that details the new board game lineup that your sales team will then be able to use retailers to stock the shelves with 50 years of family fun. So you needed a cover page, a product page for the 4 board games, and then an About Us page. But most importantly, it needed to include a synced nav bar, which is what we talked about during our last Creative Challenge webinar. And then upon submission and completion, you would earn the synced nav badge that I created and will also award to myself because I don't need to do them. I make the rules around here. All right, so we had 2 submissions today. The first is Obi's, and then we will get into Chris's. So I'll open Obi's in another tab. And here we go. So Blitz board game. So this is the synced nav that Obi put together. A logo created by Obi himself. And here is the homepage. Mountain Climber, I would assume, is one of the board games. He's got a carousel. Farrah's Fawcett, which is a great board game name. A Snail Chase. And EVW Road Trip. So here on his page, you've got each of the board games, a detailed bit about them, and then a nice quote from Jenny, who lives in Iowa. Amazing. So then if we go up to the nav bar here, we got the product page created by did you these are fantastic. Are you ready to not be bored? Indeed I am. All right, so Mount Climber I am interested in, ages 9 and up. So he's got this awesome little hover state here with additional details. So he's got the title, the description of the game, the price, the order button, but then just a little detail tab here. Because with board games, you obviously want to know what the age level is. Amount of players is probably the most important thing. Nothing's worse than trying to play a board game with too many people. And then what is included. So nice little touch there. I love the box art. It's incredible. Here's the one I'm most interested in. Snail Chase. Be the first to navigate your slimy snail through a delightful and whimsical garden to the finish line. Don't be distracted by the delicious patches of leafy greens or rotted logs. Watch out for garden tools and predators. All right, ages 4 to 11. 2 to 4 players, includes board game, 4 snail figurines. I hope they're the kinds you get to paint yourself. 4 slimy strips, snail spinner, and instructions. I'm pre-order that one right now. It's only $21.99. And then Farrah's Faucet is fantastic. Ages 10 and plus. Nice. So you're fixing faucets in a board game? That's fantastic. I also just love like the 3D mock-up of the box art. You did a fantastic job with that, Obai. I love it so much. And then of course, Volkswagen Road Trip in a collaboration with Volkswagen, ages 12 and up. Ooh, it's got a solar power LED game board, and only for $42.99. That's a steal right there. Very fun and creative. The about page. Oh, here's our founder right there. Bob Blitz was the name of the founder. Loved board games so much that he started creating his own. Titles such as Frisco Disco, Buzz the Beekeeper, and Battle Chip, not to be confused with Battleship, or some of his first inventions. Fantastic about page. I love the overall branding. It's very fitting for a board game company. It's bright, it's fun, it's cartoonish. You hit it right on the mark. And then here is the contact page. Someone give this a call, see if it's real. Hey, they're in Wisconsin. All right, there you go. Fantastic work. Oh, bye. You get yourself a badge. That is so good. Yeah, the copywriting genius, says Ashley. Agreed. That was super fun. All right, let's look at Chris's. Ooh, Chris goes for more like a Pizza Planet style logo, which I'm all about. Lots of greens, various shades of greens. Really cool use of object states. We're going to get in object states just a little bit when we get into our lesson, but look how cool that is. Adds that little bit of like depth and a little bit of like dynamics to this hover. And what I really appreciate about this little asset here is you'll notice as I hover on them, each of the die expands at a different rate or a different speed, right? To make it just feel a little more organic. Instead of all of them kind of just zooming out at the same time, you'll notice that this far one and this far one and this one, they all change or they go at different speeds. Like, look how cool that is. Really good little touch to make it feel very organic. Love it. We scroll down, got this awesome textured pattern background. Each of the board games have a hover state. Explore new games. Yes, please. Each Blitz game is engineered for maximum chaos with minimal downtime. That's my kind of board game. I'm actually a sucker for board games. They're so fun. And so here we go. Simple naming scheme. Board game 1 through 4. Fast-paced strategy game where alliances are fragile and treachery is a valid strategy. It's a dog-eat-dog world when you play board game number 1. Yeah, Liana points out the very good use of object states, right? Like everything seems to have some sort of like on hover type of interaction associated with its hover state. The price for this one, right? Like that's really cool. And honestly, like a lot of like upfront thinking to get the first one built out, and then it's sort of just copy and paste for the other one. So it's not this like crazy long process to create this little section here, but very efficient way that he set it up. So amazing job there, Chris. Each of the board games, this one, a board in board game number 2, players dash through the kitchen, hoard treats, sabotage rival appetites, and fight for fridge dominance. It's fast, frantic, and just a little sticky. Warning, may cause real-time hunger and competitive snacking. Oh boy. Board game number 4. Each round, players throw down ridiculous facts about bizarre animals, outrageous laws, and completely made-up nonsense. Can you spot the truth? I bet that one is quite the hoot. I'm down to play all of these games that both of you created. So really good job, again, with the custom nav here. Really cool animations. The whole thing, right? Very cohesive. Awesome animations with these lines. All of it is fantastic. Amazing job, Chris and Obai. Love them so much. You both got yourself the nav badge along with me. All right. Awesome. There will not be a July creative challenge because we had to push this webinar back a week. We normally do these creative challenge webinars the first week of each month. So we had to push back just for scheduling reasons. So we lost a week, and July, as you know, is very busy. And so we decided to forego July, but we will be back in August, better than ever with another prompt. So we'll see you at that one. Okay. So good. I love looking at those. They're so fun to see the creative things that everyone puts together. We put together these ridiculous prompts, and it's cool to see the creative outcomes from the prompts. So Sam said, I'm finishing mine today. I have to add animations. All right, Sam, we will be anxiously awaiting it posted in the creative challenge section of Educate. All right, with those out of the way, let's get into what we're here to talk about, which is parallax hover effects. And in order to really talk about how to create a parallax hover effect in Studio, we have to first understand what parallax is and what it means. And so we'll first start by defining the parallax effect as a whole, not necessarily only as it applies to design, but just overall out there in the world, what does parallax mean? So the parallax effect, as defined by me, is the apparent shift of an object's position when viewed from different angles, locations, or distances. So you can look at an object from one angle or one location or one distance or whatever, and then as you change perspectives, the object has this apparent shift in its position as well. So we don't live in a two-dimensional world. So as you move, the object seems to move as well. So it's this really cool effect out there in the wild. It's used in film, it's used in photography, it's just used everywhere. As a terrible example, here is a picture of my kitchen. And I use this because there are like a lot of like lines and dynamic things going on here, right? And so this is just a picture of like my stove and my microwave and my range in my kitchen. So this is just a view just kind of taken with my phone, right, at no particular angle. However, I am engaged to a short person. I am approximately 12 inches taller than my fiance. So we did a very scientific test of standing in the same position and holding our phones to our faces to see how the objects in the image shift based on how high or low the angle was. So what sort of parallax effect was created from the different angles of viewing the same thing? Same tilt on the phone, same position, same everything. So as you can see, my angle, it's much higher up than my fiance's angle, which is lower down. So the parallax effect, which we said is the apparent shift of an object's position. So from going down just a mere 12 inches, obviously it's not totally scientific, but you get the point. What happened to the objects in the image? Like, how did their position shift, right? So as you went up and then you went down, the objects, so as you go down, the objects tend to shift upwards, right? So if this is just the frame, everything in the frame shifted up. So yes, the camera went down, but the objects, the viewpoint went up because you can't even see the top of the cupboards here. We live in a very old house with really tall cupboards, and so like everything up there is just mine. And if I don't want anyone to touch that stuff, they can't. I can hide stuff up there. It's great. Why can't you see the top of the door? So it's because it's a camera. It's not like a full like field of view. It's just a camera, but it just gives you like the parallax effect. It's just a simple example. But I will say that I can't imagine living life this low. Like imagine, I mean, some of you are probably 5'4", but imagine going through the store and not being able to see the very top shelf. Like, what do you do when you can't reach? Do you bring a ladder with you? I don't know. Liana says she's 5'4". Kelsey and Alex are 5'2". What do you? Sam's 5'8". Okay, Sam's right in that sweet zone. Beth is 5'2" as well. You can't 5'1". Nicole wins. 5'1". Nicole, how do you get stuff off of the top shelf at the grocery store? And do you get lost in the aisles? This is my guess. Yeah. Oh man. All right. So anyway, that is a very simple example of generally what the parallax effect is. So an object, in this case, this stuff, its apparent shift in position when the viewpoint or the perspective changes. So as the viewpoint goes down, the object has this illusion of going up. All right. Cool. So the parallax scroll, which we have heard a million times in UX design, web design, just visual digital design in general. We all know of the term parallax scroll. So it is very much built on the idea of the parallax effect. So it's using multiple layers in a design that move at different speeds when you're scrolling on the page to create the illusion of depth or changing viewpoints. So layer one and layer two, when you scroll past them, they move at different speeds. And doing so creates this sort of illusion that there is depth between them and that you are physically moving down, even though you're looking at a 2D screen. So here's a really good example of the parallax scroll. I know we've seen a bunch of them everywhere, but this one I really like. This is for a video game called Firewatch. It came out quite some time ago. It's like 4 hours. Highly recommend playing it. So this is an awesome landscape shot, right? And so you'll notice as I scroll, watch how the different layers here, so it's like layer one, layer two, and layer three, watch how they move up at varying speeds, right? So as you do this, it creates this illusion of a 3D scene because they're all moving at different speeds. And so similar to my very scientific kitchen photos, it's like you're getting shorter. And so someone who's maybe Nicole's height can see about like this, and someone who's really tall like me can see the whole thing. I'll just hold you up, Nicole. But so this is how you create an illusion of the parallax effect through scrolling, right? By having objects move at different speeds. Our very front object here moves extremely fast. Everything behind it moves extremely, or cascades at slowing speeds. And then the very back here, this background image, like with this like watchtower up here, it doesn't move at all. See how that pretty much just stays the same? I mean, it moves a little bit, but like really, I guess the sun and the clouds don't move at all, huh? Yeah, so the sun and the clouds, like the background, the landscape is completely static, and everything in front of it moves at a varying speed. That is the parallax scroll, and that's how you create the parallax effect when scrolling in a digital UI. All right, cool. So now we are going to talk about the parallax hover, which is similar to the parallax scroll, but it's a bit different. So if you are trying to scroll to create that parallax depth or that changing perspective, how could you do that with a hover? So it's creating the illusion of changing viewpoints when hovering on something from different locations. So if this is our option or our object here, and we hover here, the image should have to some degree a little bit of shift to give the illusion that you are shifting its view. Same with here, here, or here. So in order to create a parallax hover within Studio, you need a few things. One, obviously some sort of object. An image is going to be best because it has more detail and you can sort of create that illusion of moving without actually using a 3D render of an environment, right? You'll need object states in order to drive the movements. I mentioned object states when we were looking at Chris's board game challenge. He used object states for those die and his landing section. So we need those to move our object. We need smooth transitions to make it feel natural. And then we need on hover, obviously, interactions to make it work. So we're going to get into making one. And here's the experience we're going to use. So many of you have been in our guided design courses or watched some of the videos that Patrick on our team creates. And you might have heard of Tripper, the destination vacation booking application, highly competitive with Airbnb. This is my favorite brand in the Saros verse of made up brands that we use for various things. So this is a landing page all about the Pacific Northwest and awesome sights to see within the Pacific Northwest. It's titled Mountains and Lakes. We'll take some time to just kind of like go through the experience itself, and then we'll go into how we create the parallax hover. So yes, Jess, on therefore will not work on mobile. Yes. So if you were to create a mobile variant, you would have to somehow make it work with tapping the screen rather than hovering. So this is parallax hover, but you could very well say parallax touch if you want to make a mobile version. It works just the same, you'll see, just a little different. So when I created this experience last night, I wanted to have the images feel big and vast and like there is a lot of space um, that the viewer is looking at. And so this, as you scroll down, you can see we have the title fade in behind the trees to add just a little bit of depth. And then I wanted like an elongated or an exaggerated hover picture or a scroll picture. So a lot of times you have an image that's just the size of your fold. I wanted a really long one to sort of give that feel that what you're looking at is really big. So it kind of goes and it goes and it goes. It's very scenic and it's beautiful, so it's visually interesting. And then that sort of parallaxes over a background here, which is another image with another tagline. Again, feeling big, open, and spacious. I think the yellow contrasts very well against the black and white. And then you scroll, and another image scrolls on top of that. So without really creating a full parallax scroll, we've created some sort of depth already with our image, right? Because we're stacking layers on top of each other, and we're even stacking words between elements within an image. And I'll kind of show you how I did that in a minute. But then you scroll, and then you get to this section here, which is essentially all of the content. And then there is a hover state for each of these destinations in the Pacific Northwest. And then if you were to click on one, a pop-up shows up with some information on the place, and then a CTA to book your trip, takes you to the nearest whatever, so you can be within range to see these beautiful places. All right, and then obviously we have a footer section down here with another CTA, some social stuff, whatnot. So that is the experience that we're going to use. I'll give you one scroll up just so you can kind of see once again how it works. Big, exaggerated landing section here, make it feel big. We got our words just peeking behind our trees a little bit here. And so I will now open this experience in Studio and we can get to work. All right. So let me first kind of give you a lay of the land of how this is set up, because it is a little bit tricky how I made everything work, and then we'll get into creating the parallax hover effect. So here is my layers panel. We won't worry about the pop-ups because that is the pop-up. Our footer folder here obviously contains all of our elements for the footer at the bottom of the page. And then here in the title or tiles, all of those tiles that we'll get to when you hover, a CTA. These hotspots are crucial in hiding these elements here, because here's my title. As you can see, in order to have this scroll behind the mountains, I needed to pin this here in the inspector panel. So this doesn't move, but everything around it does move. So it gives the illusion that the words are falling behind the trees, but in reality, the words are staying in place and everything else on the canvas is scrolling past it. And so in order to hide this, if we go here, in order to hide this when we get down, you can see now that we think about it, this is frozen in place. In order to hide it when we scroll past this, I needed an interaction called hide title. It's just a hotspot with an on view interaction to hide this when we scroll past. You can see as I'm scrolling, here it is. So once this hotspot is viewed on the screen, it will hide this this content here. Obviously, that's not going to work while we're in Studio. So as you can see, when I scroll down, everything is jumbled up because interactions don't work while you're building. But that kind of gives you the understanding of how we did that. And then this one is the reverse. So when I'm scrolling back up, when they view this, it will show the same thing. It'll show the title. And so then this image, similar, it's pinned its location. So that way everything else can scroll up past it like this. And then that's how we sort of create this parallax-ish type of scroll effect. So once again, like that, right? So here is what we're going to work on. This image back here is a really good candidate for a parallax hover image because it has depth in it already. In order to really create a parallax hover, you would need multiple objects that hover at different speeds. But what I've done here is I've just used one image that has depth in it already. But importantly, from a design detail, is it has a lot of intricate parts to it. So you can see like the spines and the needles on the pine trees here add a lot of detail to the image. So when there's more detail and the image is shifting around, it's going to give more of an exaggerated view that it is moving, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll all the way back down here. And here is my image, which is conveniently not loading. There we go. And so in order to create this effect, we need to add hover or object states to this image that will be triggered by my various hovers. The hovers that will trigger them are these hotspots. So the idea is when I hover over one of these, like this, the image behind it will subtly shift in the direction or the quadrant that this hover interaction is in. So if I hover on Mount Rainier's tile, I would want my whole image to kind of shift up and to the left. And then here I'd want it to shift down and to the right and so forth. So the first thing to do is select the image and then add some states to it. So I come here, and then my default state is exactly where it is. It's stationary state. This is where it's going to be right at the beginning. But in order to smoothly shift to the different positions that I'm going to create, I have to add an animation or a transition. And I want the transition to kind of ramp down as it gets closer to its designated position on the canvas. So I'm going to choose ease out. That means it's going to be faster and then slow down as it approaches its final destination. And I want it to be a little more subtle, so I'm going to increase the duration to nearly a second. So it takes just a little bit longer to get to each of the positions. So then I'm going to come here and add a new state. So this first state that I'm going to create is going to move the whole image to the top left. So I'm just going to say top one, T1. So that's T1 is top one. That's the first state I'm going to have it move to. Okay. And then I'm going to add that same transition. So it moves very slowly and subtly. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to move the coordinates of the image on the canvas to where I want it to be. So I feel like adding 30 pixels in both directions is a good amount to have it shift, but have that shift feel subtle. So it's not this like kind of harsh or like really, really sharp move. So we'll just have it be 101 pixels to the right. As you can see on my canvas, it moved over, and then we need it to move up. So since Studio counts height downward, we need to subtract 30. So that would put me there. Ta-da! So there is my first state. So if I go back to my default state and I hover, as you can see, that's where we're going to go. I will then go to my corresponding hotspot and add a new interaction. So on hover, I'm going to change target state, and then I will target the image that I added the state to, and then I'm going to select T1. I'm going to save the interaction. So let's preview it and see how it goes. This should give you an idea of what we're essentially building. So we'll scroll down. Everything works as intended. We didn't break anything. And we get here. So it is in its default state. But if I hover Mount Rainier, if I did things correctly, the image should subtly shift up and to the left. Moment of truth. It doesn't. But it's stuck. So let's try that again. And we got to fix. Oh, I know what I did. I know what I did. So we go to hover. By default, lock state is on. Simple mistake. Don't do that. There you go. There we go. All right. There's your grand reveal. So you can see how it shifts the perspective or gives the illusion of a parallax perspective when I hover here. So now it's a matter of replicating that for each of the other states. So I will go back to my image. I'll go back to the design section of the inspector panel, and I will add another state. I just found them in the asset library, Sam. That's where I found all these images of the Pacific Northwest. So this one will be T2. So this will be my center position, right? And I'll have the same transition so it's smooth, and then my x coordinate will remain the exact same as my default because we're not moving to one of the other sides. So all I need to do with this one is change the y coordinate. So you can see that it moves up, right? Perfect. And so then I would go to my hotspot, add the same on hover interaction, change target state since we're using object states, select my target image, and then select T2. Don't lock your state, and then save interaction. We'll go back to my image. We'll create T3. Same transitions. It's sort of a rinse and repeat. We can do it super quick once you figure out exactly what you're trying to do. So now we need to shift the other direction 30 pixels. So that puts me at what, -40? I'm really good at math. -41. Okay. And then boom. Ta-da. So then we add the same interaction. On hover, change target state. Parallax. T3. So you're kind of see how this is starting to all work. So now we need to do mirrored object states for the bottom row. So I'm going to create a new one called bottom one. And then I am going to add those same transitions. And then, so I need to move this back to 101 to add those 30 pixels. But then I'm going to add 30 pixels to my y coordinate since we're moving down the page. So 60 plus 30 is 90, right? Hopefully. Yep, there we go. Perfect. Add our interaction here. Change target state. Our image. And we're going to choose B1. Don't lock the state. Boom. 2 more. Add B2. Add our transition. Add our easing. This will remain the same, but we'll increase our y coordinate. Perfect. And we'll go add our interaction like this. B2, don't lock the state. All right, folks, last one, I swear. Add B3, bottom 3. Increase my duration, my easing, and so then we need to subtract, so that takes us to 40, and then we need to add, so that takes us to 90. Then all we need to do is add the final interaction to the final hotspot. On hover, change target state, and then, oops, scroll down, and then B3, save interaction. Just going to triple check all of my hotspots just to make sure I got the right one set up. Make sure I didn't lock any of these states so I don't ruin my grand reveal again. All right. The grand reveal. So I will hover and it works. But now you can see as I hover the different ones, the image perspective continues to shift. Voila. Just like that. Ta-da! We did it. And you can see it's really not that hard. All you need to know is object states, right? And the function is object states, and the design element is using the correct transitions to ensure that it moves smoothly. Without the transitions, it would be a very choppy, like moving to the different coordinates. But the transitions and the soft, like easing out, helps it be very fluid and very, like you're kind of moving your head around. Here's my perspective. Here's Nicole's perspective, right? So it's almost like you're moving your head around while you are looking at this. And as I mentioned before, using a more detailed image exaggerates the effect, right? If it was a very simple, like solid color, you would have nothing. Having some detail, you would see them move, but having a lot of detail, there's more pixels, there's more stuff on the screen that are moving to create it a more interesting look. So let's update my experience. And then let's look at it as a masterpiece. Yeah, Beth. So same question as I believe Jill, I think, asked. Obviously, you can't hover with your fingers on a touchscreen device. So you could do something similar, but what you'd have to do is it'd have to be triggered on the tap. So I'll kind of show you what I mean by that in just a second. Let's look at this first. So we scroll. Here we have, again, remember, these are, I'll point this out because I don't know if I pointed that out for thoroughly enough. We scroll up. This is obviously very jumbled, but what I've done here to make it fit between the mountains and the images or the trees like that is I have two images. I have my hero background image. If I hide it, you can see the pinned image behind it, but I have the exact same here. Let me actually hide this whole folder, and then I will hide my hero background. So there is my back canvas, right? But you can see I have an image on front of it that is the same thing, just with the trees or the mountains removed. So here is the hero background image. I hide it. You can see that this is the exact same image. What I did is I created a copy of the image, and then in Photoshop, I just removed the mountains and I pasted it on top. So that way they go together very well. But when they're smashed together, which I use to smash the words between them, it creates that sort of depth, a little bit of that parallax, right? Technically, you could say this is parallax because the mountain or the two images and the text are moving at different speeds. The speed of the text is that it's not moving at all. The speed is 0 miles per hour, while everything else moves around it. So technically, it is parallax. But having more objects moving at more speeds would create even more of a parallax effect. All right, so that is how you would do that, right? All right, so let's go back to this and we'll take a good look at our final version. Boom. So we scroll past, we have a bit of depth there, our exaggerated hero image, so it feels big. We've got this parallax background image here. Things are going to scroll on top of it. And then we get to the meat of our experience. And for that added level of engagement and touch, when you hover over each of these, our image moves in a parallax hover fashion. Ta-da! So to answer your question, Beth, if you were to create this on mobile, what I would do is the same hotspot used to open one of these. I would add a short delay for when the pop-up opens, and I would have that same interaction, that touch to open this pop-up, move my parallax image into its corresponding position. So the sequence would go, the user would touch the screen, the image would move up, and then right when the image finishes moving up, the pop-up would display. And then once the pop-up displayed, the image would slowly move back down to its default state. So because there are no hovers on touchscreen devices, that's how you'd have to do it. It would still give that perspective. In some ways, it would be a very different type of engagement because the image would then be reacting to the tap, not necessarily to the hover. So it would look pretty cool. You just have to sequence it a little bit more than what we're doing here. So you would touch the screen, the parallax image would move to its target object state, and then the pop-up would show in a very quick sequence like that. Jim says next level would be the image was two pieces, so the trees move fast in the background. Exactly, Jim. So that's what I was going to point out next is if you really wanted to take this to the next level, is you would do exactly, and that's why I pointed this out, you do exactly what I did here with this image. So everything in the background you would remove in your design tool of choice. You can even use the background removal tool in Studio. You would remove everything in the background from the image and only have these upfront pine trees. You would then do the reverse on a separate image. You would remove the foreground and only keep the background. At that point, you would probably want to use some sort of like content fill tool within Photoshop to fill the background so it feels like it's all one. And then you would layer those on top of each other. And then when you would hover, you would have them move maybe even different directions. So you would have your background move this way and you'd have your trees move that way because that parallax effect, as we know, is the apparent shift of an object's position, and that's how you'd create it as like a really full on big time parallax effect. Again, that takes a lot of effort and time because you'd have to look in between all of these branches and these needles and pine needles and whatnot, but it could very well be done. And I think maybe we do a follow-up webinar where we do that. But great call out, Jim. Yes, that would be the next level. But for efficiency and time's sake, this creates a very good parallax effect. And as you can see, it only took us, what, 5-10 minutes to put together? So very dynamic, but very easy to create. Cool. All right. So that's how you do it. I encourage you to think about the experiences that you're working on, whether they're for creative challenges, courses that we put on, or if they're experiences you're creating for work. You might not involve pine trees, but think about how you could incorporate a parallax hover effect to some degree on the stuff that you're creating. Maybe it's a textured background with brand assets. Maybe your brand uses quite a bit of live stills like photography and images like that in your work. You could have a large full width picture of someone doing whatever they do with your business. And then when you hover over one of these, it could shift ever so slightly. Adds just an extra layer of depth and an extra layer of engagement to your experiences as you put them together. So that's what I've got. Does anyone have any questions about what we've covered today? I'm going to look at the Q&A real quick, see if there's any in there. If not, you can go and throw them in the chat. All right, cool. Well, that's what we've got for today. Thank you so much for hanging out, and thanks for going through this with us. I hope it was fun. I hope you found some cool ways that you could use it within the work that you're creating. And we would love to see anything that you create around the community with this. So thanks again. Enjoy your Thursday, and we'll see you in the next one. See ya.